How did your parents' jobs appear to you when you were growing up?
I felt like they worked very hard, and that was always a big thing. I think that my concept of work is partly formed by this idea that yes, you could enjoy your jobs, or you could get something from them, or that you should do the right job. But it was always a bit of it. There was a sense that there's a bit of a sacrifice, like you're being paid for this job because you wouldn't be doing it unless you not that you're doing something that you wouldn't maybe otherwise do, and you deserve payment for it. My mum was a teacher in a special needs school, so that was a really kind of meaningful job, but it was also a really hard job. And it was like a really hard job that she wanted to do but also found difficult, and she's very good at it, but like she deserved to be paid for it, kind of thing. And my dad, he worked at a factory. He was like a kind of he did various jobs, like he was kind of not like on the factory floor, but like more of a kind of manager, or like he did like things in finance and logistics and stuff, so it was kind of a white collar job. But in this factory, it was quite an ugly factory. Like it was in Prideaux in Northumberland, and it was like it was this toilet paper factory, and it had like these big chimneys and kind of very like industrial. I used to do cross country running like a path, like look down on it. And
how did you feel?
I just kind of thought, I didn't feel bad. I just thought, it's so ugly, and it was almost like, but it was the kind of thing, it's like a respect thing. I had a respect for him, that he worked so hard to look after us and get us the things that we needed. Like we had enough money. We were like a big family, and like lots of foster care, and like we had enough money because my dad and my mum, but mainly especially my dad, worked in this hard job. Where he works like a lot of hours and had a lot of responsibility, and it was very stressful in this kind of ugly place we had to go to. And he had asthma and eczema, and his asthma and eczema would flare up when he was particularly stressed at work. I volunteered in a homeless place. I worked as a care assistant. I worked as a life model. I did this thing called Sing and Sign, where like you teach babies and parents sign language through singing.
So all your work seems to be kind of around care and education.
Yeah, looking after people. I always wanted to look after people and do meaningful stuff. And I tried to like find my way to doing that through various things. So I thought about being a nurse, so I tried out being a care assistant. Didn't like it that much, although I got a lot from it, but didn't realise I couldn't actually function as a human doing shift work and much. I just got so tired, and the job was very emotional, being a care assistant. Like it was very exhausting physically and mentally and emotionally, and I couldn't deal with being that tired and that out of sync with everyone. I'd feel really sick, my body felt really sick. And I just remember one day I'd had a really, really hard shift, and we'd been up late, and I'd been working with someone who'd been in care a long time, like being a care assistant a long time. But she kind of become so kind of like weary of it that she then was doing a really poor job. Like she was quite kind of just a bit slapdash. But she was working with like old people who needed care, and she'd do things like not do their shirts up properly. The place I worked was the kind of place where it was basically when all else had failed, so when all these people had been to other care homes and been too much to handle, they'd gone to this care home where I worked, so it happened to be in my parents' village. And so it was kind of like the last stop for them. I don't know what would have happened to them, but it was the last resort. So it'd been like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd gone up, and there was a woman who already was quite interesting and magical, because she used to like do things like she'd be sitting in her chair like in the day, and all of a sudden like do loads of roly-polies across the room. But she was basically in her chair, in her room, and she'd defecated all over the carpet and was just throwing it around, and it was really hard. But that would have been okay, but what it was sad, and then I just felt so sad in the morning and I was so tired. I remember going to bed and just crying all day, not just because it was so hard for the people who were there, but their situations, they didn't get visitors, and the fact that the people caring for them didn't really care about them anymore because it's so hard. And I just remember thinking, I can't do this can't be, I have to find a way of caring for people that's not like this, because I can't function. I didn't want to go to work again. I was sad and
You told
tired.
Me once that the management wouldn't put up with you. They wanted you to work a double shift and you said no.
Oh, that was
or
I
something.
was also working, that was actually a bit different. So what was happening, at the same time I was working in this care home, I was also working in a kitchen, and it was a kitchen the kitchen was also short-staffed, and they wanted me to work during the day even when I'd done night shifts. So sometimes I'd work a night shift and they'd still ask me to come in during the day, and I was awful because I'd been up all night and I was tired and emotionally beaten down. And so I would go, and I remember just one time we were supposed to put 8 tea bags in a big, one of those big catering teapots, and I put 14 or something. I just put them in, and then obviously forgot I'd put them in, and it was a small mistake, but the person running the kitchen, for her own reason, was so horrified. It was how could you do that? How could you do that? It was so, there was just a breakdown, and in the end, one of my other waitress colleagues walked out. I didn't walk out, she walked out, because this woman was hammering me so much, and it was just and
She walked out and left you there to be hammered?
No, she walked out in
protest?
It was in solidarity. It's I'm not putting up with us being, it was because she was talking to all of us like that. She was I'm not putting up with us being treated like this by the head person in the kitchen.
Would you discourage anyone that wanted to go into care work from doing shifts?
I would maybe just tell them be aware of what it's doing to their body, because I think my mental health was a lot worse, and I didn't quite recognise, I kind of realised after that it was partly the strain of the shifts, as well as what I was experiencing that was affecting my mental health, but my mood was just really low, and so I would tell them my experience. I wouldn't discourage anyone from going into care, because in some ways it's such a good profession, and we need more people in it, because so many people find it so hard they don't do it, and you need caring people in it that are good, and people deserve to be cared for properly and with dignity. So I wouldn't ever discourage someone not to go into it, but I would make sure they're aware of the effect that the shifts can have on their body, and if they are struggling with their mental or physical health, to kind of get support with it. I don't know. It's really hard to trace back, because it feels like it's always been there, but obviously it can't have been. I just think it was. I remember talking about this more with my friends and things when I was 13 or 14. Actually, there was a point, I remember. No, there was a distinct point when I realised I had to do something meaningful, and what it was I was always interested in art, and one of the things I was really interested in doing was being a graphic designer, because I wanted to do art, but I also, the way, I was kind of brought up, I could never say, I just want to be an artist. It had to be something that could be a job that was recognised and make money. Well, I could say that, but I remember my mum and dad would say, yeah, but how will you make money? How will you support yourself? If you were an artist, you can't just paint all day. That was very much of paint all day, but find a way for it. And one of the things, and my brother was similar, he was really into art, and one of the things that he was really into graphics as well, really stylized stuff. And he had this book of fonts when I was little, and I was used to flick through it and copy them and just love them. And I thought my brother was so cool, and we used to design logos together and stuff. We just have our names, and so I wanted to be a graphic designer, partly because it's practical, and also I like the whole graphic thing. And so when we had to do work experience when I was 14, I applied for this graphic design studio in Newcastle, and I went there, and in some ways I really liked it. I liked learning about the computer stuff, and I loved the Pantone markers in all the different colours, the shades, and how the shades related to the computer program. And I loved learning about things like spacing, and I think it's called kerning with fonts, all those things that you see but you take for granted, they just kind of your eyes just adjust them. different colours and things. So in some ways, this placement was great, but in some ways I found it really hard because first of all, like I was in an office with grown-ups and I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to talking to grown-ups and small talk and like chat, and I found it quite strange because I was so shy. It was a kind of divided office. It's like a big office with lots of dividers. So I did have the chance to like just hide behind my desk, and the guy gave me a project because he had to be away from the office quite a lot, and I would just doodle these pictures. I decided to do this like modern dance poster, so I designed all these things and like had a lot of fun with the pens, but I was terrified if anyone talked to me. And then I remember, so there was the graphic designer guy was very much, it was still the time when you could be a graphic designer and say, oh, I don't know anything about computers. So he worked with this guy who was a real kind of techie guy who was really great at Photoshop, I think it was. And at lunchtime they'd always have lunch together, and I would sometimes like have lunch with them. Again, I found it a bit awkward because I'd like to do small talk with adults, and I never felt like I was a 14-year-old girl from like a small town, so I found it quite hard to talk. I didn't have anything interesting to say, but anyway, so these guys who I thought were kind of pretty cool and were doing a job that I wanted to do in the future. I remember overhearing them. They were having a chat in front of the computer, and one of them was like, oh, I need a picture of a secretary. And the guy said to him, oh, why don't you just take a picture of whatever secretary, like someone who's an actual secretary? And he was like, oh, I would, but she's kind of had a baby now and she's kind of put weight on, so she's not really what I'm looking for. And then they went through all these people they could take photos of because they obviously didn't have time to get like a model or something. I was just horrified by the kind of shallow like nature of the conversation, and like it was these two people that I kind of respected, and they were just talking about people as if they were just things to sell stuff. And I was 14 at the time, and I was just horrified it was like this is what's bad about visuals. It's all people have to look perfect, or they're just seen as too fat or too old or like not right. And it made me feel really uneasy, and just I kind of made a snap decision just to not be a graphic designer there, which I've since regretted because I still love kind of visual art, and I still love typefaces and fonts and.
But you felt you wanted to defend the people that they were rejecting rather than... It
wasn't even that, I couldn't be part of it. It wasn't even that like I wanted to change it, it was just like I can't do that. Whatever I do has to be about helping people and not about using them. It has to be something I feel good about and not sick about.
Do you feel sad when you think about all these things? There's a kind of sadness coming through the story.
Well, I feel sad about that because I think it's true, and in a way I'm kind of... It's right that I felt that. I think in a way it's a shame though that like I kind of just... I was so young, and just that made me just reject a whole thing, like a whole path that I could have gone down. And that makes me feel a little bit sad for myself in a way, but like things happen like that. Yeah, I do still feel sad about the way people talk about women in that way. I don't think it's changed that much. Well, I just always did a lot of drawing, and I really liked drawing, and my brother was really into drawing. I thought everything that my brothers did, but Oliver, one of my brothers, is really good at drawing, and I just thought that was so cool, and I did a lot of drawing, and the more I drew, just like, the more you draw, it's one of those things, like the more you draw, the better you get at drawing. It's really fun when you draw a lot and you kind of start to do stuff you like the look of, and then, like you also get affirmation, people like the stuff that you make stuff for them, and they say, oh, it's really great, it's really nice, and I would like the fact that I could, like at school, however I felt about the subject, I could draw a picture and it would always be like, oh, you've really tried and it looks really good. And
did you think about the image of an artist or a painter?
It always seemed very far away. Like artists weren't something. Artists were sort of either people in history, like I don't know, like Monet and I don't know, Leonardo da Vinci, or I'm trying to think if I had. I think my main inspiration was my brother, who was very much like right there with me. Like the kind of famous artists weren't a big thing, and like image of an artist was, so either someone from history or someone who's very kind of like very kind of floaty and very kind of abstract and eccentric and like.
You say this like it's a bad thing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think that's partly like it's not really not. My family are artistic, but it's very much seen as like art is a nice thing that you do. Like you go to work and you earn money doing practical things, and then you go home and do some lovely art at the weekend, or like make a lovely card for someone. And it's very much like a pastime or a hobby or something like that. It's not like if you dedicate your life to it, maybe you're lucky, or maybe you're kind of just a bit like dreamy.
Lazy.
Maybe not lazy. I think that's too. But there was a very much sense of like you have to like it's not. Yeah, a bit. Yeah.
Does it look down upon?
Kind of looked down upon. I don't know, not in a straightforward sense. It'd be kind of like venerated and looked down upon, but it was never seen as like a realistic thing that you'd say you do, like next to being a nurse or next to being a teacher or like I don't know, or a doctor or something. An artist would be a kind of separate category, and you'd have to be really, 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 really good at being like you'd only do it if you were amazing at it and like the best kind of thing.
So world changing or nothing?
Yeah, kind of. You either have to be like the best and amazing, or like.
Do you still feel the same way now?
No, I feel very differently, and I feel kind of like annoyed with myself that I felt like that. Like I feel like art should be. I mean, art is a great way of like doing everything. Like so, everything kind of can be like maths and science. Everything can be taught through art.
So how did you end up working in a forest school?
I ended up working in a forest school because I realised I really loved outdoor education. Since I had the children and studied a few kind of volunteer stuff in the singing group, I realised I loved like teaching people things, especially in like fun, creative ways. And I realised as well that I loved, especially kind of outdoors, working with wildlife and nature. The job that I did before this was working in a nature reserve, and I volunteered there with the school program first. It was just a place that I liked. I used to go with my daughter when I had a baby, when I was pregnant and then had a baby with my second daughter, and I used to take my daughter out for exercise like a dog. I used to like waddle over to the nature reserve that was really nearby and just like let my daughter wander around. And I really loved that. And I like being outdoors in trees and stuff. I didn't know an oak tree from a cherry tree. Well, I maybe knew an oak tree from a cherry tree, but I wouldn't know a cherry tree from like a beech tree or even care that much. I just think it was a nice kind of nice place to go. But I noticed that this nature reserve that I really liked, that they were looking for volunteers to do the school project. So I volunteered, thinking, this will give me a good education experience. So I started to be interested in maybe being a teacher or something like that. But then, I volunteered there for a term and really loved it. And then set up this kind of art project for like weekends once a month with another volunteer. And then I got a job as a school projects officer. That was in 2014. And I just loved the job so much. I loved working with children. I loved the group. I loved the kind of fact that you didn't know what was going to happen. Like you could plan a session and plan maybe a mini beast hunt and some few activities afterwards, and you'd never know what you were going to find. Like it would be different on a wet day, so like a windy day, or and it would change all through the year. So you'd get different flowers and different creatures coming out. I just really learnt a lot in this small kind of urban nature reserve. I had a really good kind of mentor as well, and I learnt so much about it, and I just loved relaying information and realised I loved outdoor education. And then learnt about this thing called forest schools, and the more I looked into that, the more I thought that was great. So I did some forest school training. I'm still doing the qualification now.